Hi and welcome. This is Dr. Lenore Murciano Luna, bringing you another segment of What's Possible for Women. And today I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about the three collective wounds of the feminine. And this is something that I really expand upon in my new upcoming book, Birth of the Conscious Feminine. However, today I wanted to talk a little bit about it because I feel that we're in this time where women are able to heal themselves from personal and collective wounding that might be really affecting how they feel about themselves. And so, because we're in this really accelerated time of healing consciousness and there's so much of us awakening, I really wanted to talk about these three collective wounds of the feminine that I've been seeing in women in the last 10 to 20 years. And so the first wound, the collective wound of the feminine, is the wound of powerlessness. And this we see in ourselves, or we see in others, as this place within us where we feel unable to really act in the world, and we feel powerless to express ourselves completely. We feel powerless to speak our truth. And this wound, and all of these three collective wounds, are not just our own personal experience. They are actually in the collective field of the feminine. It's a way in which the feminine within each of us, not just women, but also men, has been repressed, has been affected in the last at least 5,000 years. And so for women, these wounds play out in specific ways, which is what I'm going to be talking about a little bit today. And many of us feel like it is ourselves, that we're just feeling this and that there's something wrong with us. However, these are wounds that are experienced by us, but that were also experienced by our ancestors and by the women, our grandmothers, our mothers, their mothers, and the mothers before them. So it's been happening, and for many of us, we are awakening now to a greater consciousness within ourselves, and so we have the ability to heal these wounds that we're experiencing. But sometimes we feel it very, very intensely because it's not just our wound. We're actually healing it on the lineage level, and we're healing it on our own level, at the soul level, and so in that way we're also healing it throughout the lineage. And so this first wound of powerlessness really affects us in the ways that I just mentioned, with feeling the inability to express ourselves, to speak our truth, not feeling safe enough. And it also correlates with our whole digestive system, with our immune system. In many ways, it affects our gut, and it affects, many of us experience it manifesting in our physical bodies as autoimmune issues, as digestive issues, as gut issues, and really feeling sensations and emotional sensations in our solar plexus. So all of these areas in our subtle body, in our physical body, and then of course in the more etheric bodies, are affected with this collective wound of powerlessness. Now, secondly, we have the wound, the second collective wound of the feminine, which is the wound of shame. And the wound of shame in women, we experience it as a lot to do with the shame that we hold in our bodies, with the shame about our body image, about how we look, about our value, how we confuse our value, or not confuse, but how we correlate our value with our looks and with that which is expected in our culture. And so in our culture, there's not a lot of room for our each individual unique values to come through. And that's been part of the repression of the feminine in women. And so this shame, we also might be feeling it in other ways, such as the ways in which we allow ourselves to express our sexuality, express the goodness and the pleasure in our body. And so for a lot of us, there is an intertwined shame, whether it's conscious or unconscious, and there's a level of relating value of ourselves with this particular image of ourselves, of our physical body. And again, some of us might feel that more intensely than others because it might not just be our personal issue, but it's also the issue that we're bringing up from the collective, that we're experiencing. We're tuning into the collective field, and we're actually allowing, as we heal our own wounds, as we are able to see these filters, these veils that are happening of this wounding, and allow those to dissolve. We're dissolving it not just for ourselves, but for at least 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. Because in reality, in these places, there is no time. It is a space in consciousness of timelessness. And so in that oneness, in that consciousness of no time, when we're breaking through those veils in ourselves and reclaiming that part of our soul that was in separation, that was in disconnection, we're able to also heal those that have come before us and that will continue after us. So those that will be born, that we will give rise to from our bodies, that we will birth for the next generation, now are coming in with the level of consciousness that we can give to them, right? So if there's a place in us that's healed, then the next generations will carry that forth. And this the second wounding of the feminine is the wounding of the sacral area of shame. And we see that manifest in our bodies, in women's bodies, as imbalances and disharmonies with our reproductive system, with infertility, which is a great epidemic, with endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, and also in the fact that at least 80% of women experience pain with their periods, which is really showing us the disharmony that there is energetically in this particular area. And also the fact that women have such a hard time going into menopause and moving through that transition. So this second wounding shows in all of those ways, physically and emotionally. And then the third wounding of the feminine, of the collective feminine, we experience is really the wounding of abandonment, is really the wounding of the illusion of separation that we experience. And then this wounding we may experience as feeling unsafe, feeling alone, feeling disconnected, feeling abandoned. And many times we relate it to our earlier relationships, to our childhood, which all play a role in us experiencing that veil and that filter and that wounding. However, that is also a collective field that we have been feeling and our ancestors have been feeling, and that's been coming through in the lineage of women before us. And so, in many ways, again, when we're healing it in ourselves, we're healing it for our ancestors and for those that have suffered before us. So, as women, there's a great shift in consciousness happening. There's a great awakening happening for many of us, and the first step in really healing these places that we may be experiencing for ourselves or in others is to really recognize this collective wounding that that has been manifesting in women, and realize that it's really a wounding, it's not truth, and that underneath that wounding is our true essence, our true divine nature of essence, and that is always present. However, it takes our mind, our ability to become aware of the veil, the filter, the wounding, and then become aware that that is not truth, that that is just the veil, no matter how strong our pain or our suffering is, that there's something much greater beneath that or underneath that. And so from that place of recognizing our true essence, that's really who we are, is where our value comes from, is where we can transform this first wounding of powerlessness when we are connected to our sacred power. In the second wounding, when we are connected to our pureness, our virginity, when we're connected to the essence of who we are and allowing our true, unique qualities to show through, then we can heal that second wounding of shame. And then the third wounding is really about knowing that we're never really disconnected. It's our illusion of being in separation that causes the great pain and suffering that we feel, and the great feeling of unsafety in this physical body. So I hope that this has been helpful, and I look forward to our next segment. Thank you very much. Many blessings.